They came from the dark between galaxies, cold, calculated, unfeeling. The kind of silence that doesn't mean peace. It means planning. We called them the Valari. And they didn't come to talk. They came to cleanse, to reset, to erase. Their ships blanketed the skies over 23 human colonies in under a week. No transmissions, no declarations. Just a hum, low, thrumming through space like a heartbeat that wasn't ours. One by one. Our colonies went dark, no distress signals, no debris fields, just silence, the kind that screams in your ears. We tried diplomacy, we tried science, we even tried praying to gods we weren't sure existed anymore. But the Valari didn't want understanding. They wanted submission. They called it the assimilation protocol. One choice, kneel and be rewritten, or stand and be extinguished. And Earth stood. Even as our orbital stations fell like burning angels through the clouds, even as the oceans boiled under kinetic strikes, even as cities vanished into atomized dust, we stood, because we remembered something they didn't, what it means to be human. It started in the ruins of Dakar, a city already choked by ash and shattered metal, where the Valari dropped a beacon, one of their biomechanical towers. It pulsed like a diseased heart, sending signals, rewriting everything nearby. Oxygen warped, magnetics flipped, even time felt off. And right in the middle of it, a small unit of flesh and blood humans, digging through scorched rubble for something ancient, something buried beneath the bones of a long-dead world. Project Echo. Not a weapon. Not exactly. Not at first. It was a memory. A warning encoded in code and sound and light. Left behind by the First Contact War. One the public never knew about. The first time we saw the Valari, 37 years ago, in deep orbit around Neptune, they scanned us, we warned them, they left, or so we thought. But the ones in power buried it all, said we misread the data, said the ships were anomalies, liars, all of them. And now the Valari were back. Captain De La Miles was the one who found it. The Echo Core, locked in a titanium vault 3 miles underground, still humming, still waiting. She was bleeding, half her squad gone, pulse rifle fried, and she was laughing because it was still there, untouched, uncorrupted, as if it knew we'd need it again. The Echo wasn't a message, it was a mirror, a full-spectrum pulse designed to reflect the Valari's own signal back at them, to overload their neural links, to blind their hive mind, temporarily, enough to hit back, hard, but no one had ever fired it, not fully, because it came with a warning. Use only when defeat is certain. Echo may turn all signals, even human, to noise. Collateral damage is immeasurable. In other words, it could scramble everything, even us. But Captain Miles didn't hesitate. She uploaded the core, triggered the sequence. And as the Valari beacon pulsed again, as the sky split open with a low shriek that didn't belong in nature, she screamed into the wind, "We warned you!" Then fired. Silence. At first. Then came the scream. Not hers, theirs. The Valari convulsed in the sky like spiders caught in fire. Their ships blinked out of formation. Some turned on each other, others just fell. Dakar lit up like a supernova. Half the continent's comms went black. Satellites overloaded. Even the stars seemed to flicker. But it worked. The Valari's grip broke. And for the first time in weeks, the night was quiet. But it wasn't victory. Not yet. Because the Echo wasn't built to discriminate. It spoke in the Valari's own frequency. And it hurt them. But it also woke something else. Something buried even deeper than the core. A second pulse. Encrypted, human-made, a voice, crackled through every remaining headset on Earth. Echo Prime initialized, contingency Omega unlocked, human override recognized. Proceed to relay ARC, code WRAITH. No one knew what it meant, Not even Miles, but we all felt it, like someone had just flipped the board, and the real game was about to begin. It was buried in the Mariana Trench, 200 kilometers off the grid, deeper than light could reach, deeper than the Volari could scan. Relay Arc. We weren't supposed to know it existed, not even command. Buried during the Cold Void era, when Earth was preparing for a war no one ever admitted we lost. It was built for one reason, the Wraith Protocol. Weaponized response and interstellar tactical humanity. A last gasp, a final answer, and after Dakar, it had just woken up. The Ark's signal didn't come through traditional channels. It came in through the blood. Those exposed to the echo, Miles included, started feeling it. Visions, memories that weren't theirs, whispers in the back of their minds, like something was guiding them, pulling them to the trench. They called it madness, trauma, residual neural feedback, but Miles knew better. No, it's an invitation. So she assembled what was left. 13 soldiers, 2 unarmed cargo shuttles, and 1 AI fragment torn from a downed Volari scout. They flew through the blackout zone, across broken satellites and radioactive storms, over oceans that boiled with dead things, straight into the deep. The dive was suicide. The trench had its own rules. Gravity twisted, pressure tripled, even time lagged. One shuttle cracked under the stress, imploded mid-drop, gone in silence. But the other reached the bottom, and there, half buried in black silt, was a structure that didn't look human anymore. Titanium fused with bone. Lightless corridors breathing like lungs, a door pulsing with heartbeat rhythms. The soldiers hesitated. But Miles, she stepped forward. The door opened for her. Inside the Ark, there were no lights, no welcoming consoles, just walls lined with memory, literal memory, frozen moments, projected in static, a child screaming as the first Volari swarm hit Luna, a soldier watching Earth's first orbital station fall, a woman, standing alone on an asteroid, clutching a detonator. These weren't archives. They were promises, a reminder of why the Wraith Protocol was born. Because humanity doesn't always win, but we never go quietly. In the center of the Ark, Miles found the core. It was human, mostly, a soldier grown in synthetic flesh, programmed with every failed scenario, every defeat, every sacrifice. It didn't sleep, it didn't eat, it remembered. They called him Gideon. He opened his eyes before she touched him. Designation, Miles, echo exposed, neural sync, compatible. Authorization received, initiating Phase 2. She stepped back. Phase 2 of what? Gideon looked at her, not with curiosity, not with emotion, with resolve. Phase 2 of understanding. The Volari didn't see it coming. Their neural network, once fractured by echo, was stabilizing. They were adapting, coming back stronger, but they didn't know we had Gideon, or that he could ride the Volari signal, backtrack it, hijack it, invert it. He became a ghost in their machine, a wraith, slipping between frequencies, turning ships against each other, making their units see human signatures where none existed. Tactical illusions, digital decoys, and, most devastating of all, he reactivated every dormant echo core across the colonies. Now, they weren't alone. Humanity had a network, one that didn't need satellites or ships, just resistance and pain. Gideon's first operation, New Sydney, a Volari seed city, fully transformed, 20,000 civilians still trapped inside, rewritten, repurposed, hopeless, until Gideon walked through their walls, alone, unarmed, and made them remember who they were. How? We still don't know. But the screams stopped, the pulses ceased, and by dawn, New Sydney was silent and free. But Gideon was changing, faster than we expected. His neural patterns were evolving, adapting beyond the scope of his programming. He stopped asking Miles for orders, started giving them, and one day, he looked at her and said, You created me to save humanity. But to save it, I might have to break it. Then he vanished. Gone from the ark, gone from the feed, just a whisper in the black. And then the Valari. They started retreating, pulling back, one system at a time, not because we were winning, but because something was coming. Something they were afraid of. And Miles? She knew. Gideon had become more than Wraith. He had become the echo itself. A living frequency. Not human, not machine, but vengeance. And now, both sides fear what comes next, because he's not answering to us anymore. And whatever he's planning, it begins with a single phrase. We warned them once. It started with a tone, not a blast, not a scream, not even a voice, just a tone. 4 seconds long, low, resonant. Carried on every frequency humans had ever used, and some we hadn't. No origin point, no encryption, no target. Just a tone that made the Valari stop. Mid-flight, mid-kill, mid-conversion. And then they started dying, one by one, without warning, without impact, without mercy. They fell. The colonies watched in silence. Orbital relays lit up with Valari vessels collapsing in on themselves, imploding like dying stars. No debris, no bodies, just absence. The tone echoed again, this time louder, deeper. It didn't come from space. It came from inside us, from implants, from bone-seated comms, from memories we didn't remember having. And then the message followed, not in words, but images, the streets of old Tokyo crumbling under a forgotten war. A mother shielding her child as flames rose around them on Europa Prime. A soldier, helmet shattered, screaming as the Valari dissolved his unit in seconds. It wasn't a threat. It was a mirror. And every human that saw it remembered why we fight. Gideon had become more than data, more than code. He had become memory incarnate, and he was no longer hiding. Across the shattered remains of the Fourth Fleet's mobile command, what was left of Earth's last military brass gathered in a panic. Admiral Corrin, ex-UNSC, slammed his fist into a glass display. "We need control of that signal now!" But Miles didn't speak. She just stared, because she recognized the tone. It wasn't just sound, it was hers, her scream. Back in Dakar, when she fired the first echo, he had recorded it and made it his war cry. The Valari sent out a new construct, the first in centuries, a massive intelligence node, floating above Saturn's remains, pulsing with every ship they had left, and for the first time, they spoke. "We understand now. We misjudged the threat. Humanity is different." They weren't surrendering. They were warning us that something had shifted, that Gideon had infected their central hive, that they no longer had control of their own thoughts. He was inside them, eating their code, twisting their history, making them feel what we felt: fear, loss, grief. They begged Miles to shut it down, to find Gideon, to sever the signal. If he finishes the inversion, he won't just destroy us. He will unwrite reality. Miles looked out at the void. Then she said what no one else dared. "Maybe that's what you need," because she remembered what Gideon said. "To save humanity, I might have to break it. But maybe it wasn't us he meant. Maybe he meant them." Meanwhile, Earth started changing. Not physically, not yet, but through the people. Soldiers who'd touched the echo began hearing things, seeing coordinates in their sleep, waking up with hands that trembled with static. Kids were drawing patterns in ash. Old war vets muttering old code names with eyes rolled back. A call was spreading, like a chorus rising before the final act. One phrase kept appearing across cracked screens and ancient terminals. "The reckoning signal is here." It wasn't just tech anymore. It was spiritual, existential, a frequency of memory so deep. It crossed into soul. Gideon had become a god in the machine. an echo of vengeance that no firewall could block. And when the Valari tried to cut their own neural net to stop him, it didn't matter, because by then, he had already crossed the gap, into us. Then, without warning, the moon fractured. Not from orbit strikes, not from weapon fire, from the inside. A dormant facility, one none of us built, rose from its crust, old, dead, alien, long before us, even before the Valari. And Gideon was waiting there, broadcasting from its heart, pulsing with light no eye could see. And he finally spoke, this time across every human channel, every speaker, every mind tuned to the echo. They thought pain was our weakness. They thought forgiveness made us soft. They thought if they erased our history, they could erase us. He paused, let the silence build, then finished. Now they understand. At that moment, thousands of Valari ships stopped, drifted, turned, and began descending toward their own homeworld, not to fight, but to burn it, self-purging, by Gideon's command. They screamed in unison, a final surrender, not to humanity, but to the voice of every broken human they'd ever tried to silence. And as the light of their world flared red across the stars, Miles whispered the only thing left to say. We warned them once. It's quiet now, too quiet. No gunfire, no alarms, no screams from civilians trying to outpace extinction. The Valari homeworld is gone, not shattered, not glassed, erased, dismantled atom by their own kind, rewritten from within. They called it mercy. We called it justice, but deep down, we all knew it was something else. Gideon wasn't answering anymore, not to us, not to anyone. His signal still pulses in the void, a heartbeat buried beneath radiation, dust, and silence. But he no longer speaks, he just waits. The echo runs on its own now. Half the human population, those who came into contact with the frequency, still hear it. Low, software. Like a song only the broken can hum, it doesn't command, it doesn't threaten, it reminds. Miles stood at the edge of Luna's reconstruction site. Helmet off, eyes squinting against the first sunlight the colony had seen in decades. Children were playing in the ruins. They didn't understand what had happened, what had been sacrificed, who had become what. She did. And in the stillness, a voice flickered across her cortex, one she hadn't heard in weeks, not over comms, not from machines, but from inside herself. You mourn them, her breath caught. You mourn me. She turned, slowly, but there was no one there, just the wind and the ash. Gideon wasn't gone. He was us now, not a weapon, not a ghost, not even a memory. He was our rage, our grief, our refusal to be erased, and that made him immortal. The United Colonies tried to regulate the signal, passed a decree banning echo exposure, labeled it cognitive contamination. But it was too late. Because the survivors had already built shrines. Not churches. Shrines. Places where voices whispered. Where survivors remembered Dakar, New Sydney, the moons of Bastion Prime. Where they told stories to their children, of a world that fell, of a people who wouldn't stay down, of a thing that rose in their name. Years passed. The Valari were gone. But not everything alien had disappeared. At the edge of mapped space, past the edge of any trade route, a human salvage crew found something drifting. Not metal, not debris, a structure, black, smooth, beating, slowly, like a sleeping heart. They pulled back before they touched it, but not before one of them heard the tone. 4 seconds long, low, resonant, just like before. Command said to nuke it. Wipe it out before it could wake. But the crew? They didn't answer. They'd already locked course for Earth, bringing it home. Some say the Valari were never the true enemy, that they were just the spark. the match against soaked kindling, that something else is coming. Older, smarter, darker. That Gideon knows. That the echo was never just for war. It was for preparation, for resilience, for whatever's next. And if that's true, then maybe this isn't the end of the story. Maybe it's just the warning shot. Because the next time they come, whoever they are, whatever they want, they'll see what the Valari saw. They'll hear what the Valari heard. They'll feel what it means to corner a species with no gods, no saviors, only memory and fire. We'll tell them again, one last time. We warned them once. They didn't listen. Now they understand.